I'm going to teach you 50 idioms. That's right, 50 idioms that you can use in just everyday conversation. And if you are someone who enjoys building your vocabulary, using idioms when you're having a casual conversation, please subscribe, turn on notifications. That way I can become your teacher. My name is Wes. The channel is Interactive English. It's all about helping you reach your fluency goals. And if you would like to get these notes right here next to me, click on the link down below in the description. Join my email community and you can just better remember these idioms, learning how and when to use them. So let's just go ahead and jump into it with our first idiom, which is to twist someone's arm. This means to persuade someone to do something that maybe you just really don't want to do. And in that case, you're trying to twist their arm. And it generally has a little bit more of a negative connotation. For example, I asked you to join my email community. I am not going to twist your arm. If it's not something you're interested in, that's okay with me. I'm not going to twist your arm in order to get you to do that. So just keep in mind you're persuading someone maybe in a little bit more of a forceful way. Here's an example sentence down below. There's no need to twist my arm. I will do it. The next idiom is, this idiom is right up your alley. So if you use this idiom, you're just saying that something is the type of thing, the exact thing that somebody really likes and enjoys. It's right up your alley. As you can see, there is a picture of a bowling alley, and you're really just using this to add emphasis. And instead of me saying, look, I really think that you are going to enjoy this lesson, you're going to learn a lot of new idioms. Instead, I could just say, this lesson is right up your alley. I could also say, the game we're going to play is right up your alley. So once again, I'm just adding emphasis, saying that this is the exact thing that you like, you enjoy, when I tell you that it's right up your alley. The next idiom is one that I think is very common. Maybe you know it already. I hope that you use it because it is so common in just casual conversation. And this is something that I say all the time. Instead of saying, yeah, I'm a little sick, I would use, I'm a little under the weather, or I'm a bit under the weather, or I would just say, I'm under the weather. I'm feeling under the weather. So often you may use this with the verb feel, to feel under the weather. But this is commonly used in everyday conversation because I think we can all relate to this. From time to time, we get sick, and instead of saying that, you could use this idiom, yeah, I'm feeling a little under the weather. So please, the next time you're feeling a little sick, just use this idiom instead. Highly useful. I thought this was funny, so I thought I would share it with you. Can't work today. I'm feeling a little under the weather. I think I can relate to this, and I'm sure you can too. Maybe it's a beautiful day. Maybe we don't want to go to work, or we don't want to do other responsibilities, and we might tell someone, I'm feeling a little under the weather. To make ends meet. This means to earn enough money to live on. So if you are making ends meet, then you are earning enough money to buy groceries, pay your rent, maybe pay some other bills, and you can say that you are making ends meet. Now, this is not a great situation. Typically, I would say, not that it has a negative connotation, but it really shows that there is some difficulty. So you may use this with a verb like struggling. You are struggling to make ends meet, to struggle to make ends meet, or maybe you are barely making ends meet. You barely have enough money to pay for the things that you need. Once again, this may be an idiom that you can relate to. Think about when you first finish university, you're looking for a job, you may be struggling a little bit. You don't have a lot of savings. You're not making a lot of money, and you are just making ends meet, or you're trying to make ends meet, or barely making ends meet, or struggling to make ends meet. Those are some common collocations with this idiom. The next one is to take something with a grain of salt. So this is something that I would recommend that you do. It just means to not completely believe something that you are told because you may think it's unlikely to be true. This is a great example. Don't believe everything you read on social media. You should take it with a massive grain of salt. And I'm emphasizing the word massive because I think there's a lot of misinformation on social media. So I'm adding a little emphasis when I say take it with a massive grain of salt. To give you an example of a difference between American English and British English, so in the US, which is where I'm from, I would say that I'm going to take something with a grain of salt. In the UK, you may hear somebody say, take something with a pinch of salt. The meaning is the same, but I wanted to point out the difference between these two very common English varieties. To take something with a grain of salt or to take something with a pinch of salt. The next idiom is to take a rain check. I think this one is maybe a little more common in the United States, and you would use this to tell someone that you can not accept an invitation to do something now, but you would maybe like to do it at just a later time. And you would say, look, I can't do it right now, but let's take a rain check. I can't go running with you. I'll take a rain check. And of course, if it's raining outside, then yeah, you're not going to want to go running outside. And then, yeah, you definitely tell somebody, look, I'll take a rain check. Now, to give you a little bit of a nuance with this idiom, I think that sometimes people would say this when they want to delay something and you're really not planning to do it. Maybe I say, hey, would you like to go get a coffee? And you're thinking, oh, I don't like this guy. I don't want to spend much time with him, but I don't want to be rude. I don't want to be mean. And in that case, I'll say, look, let's take a rain check. Now, that's not always the case. Maybe you actually are going to do this thing later and would like to, and you could use this idiom. But just keep in mind, sometimes people would use this when they don't really want to tell you no, but they also don't want to do the thing that you're inviting them to do. And in that case, they may use this idiom and say, let's take a rain check. To play it by ear. This is an idiom that I love, probably because I use it quite often. And what this means is to decide what to do when you know what is happening, rather than planning in advance. I use this a lot maybe when talking about what am I going to do for the day, or if I'm traveling, what are my plans. Generally, I'll have an idea as to what I would like to do, where I would like to go, but I like to be flexible. If something happens, like maybe it's raining, or something else is going on and I want to be flexible and then change the plan, I might say, let's just play it by ear. So whether you're traveling and you have an outline of what you're going to do during the day, but you want to be flexible, you could say, let's just play it by ear. Or even you're talking with your family. Like I said, I use this quite often. My wife might say, what are we going to do tomorrow on Saturday? Should we go to the park? It seems like it's going to be a beautiful day. Then maybe we'll grab some lunch out somewhere. I'll say, well, okay, you never know what's going to happen with the weather. Let's just play it by ear. I think that's a good idea. Let's do it, but let's just play it by ear and see what happens. So it is a great idiom. Not just because I like to use it, I just think it's a good one that you can certainly use in conversation whenever you're talking about potential plans that you're getting ready to make, and you can just play it by ear. Now, not the opposite of playing it by ear, but on one end of the spectrum would be just to wing it. And if you are winging it, then you are doing something without preparation. So you could say, I didn't prepare a speech, I'm just going to wing it. Or maybe you're traveling somewhere and I say, well, what are you going to do the first day that you're there? Maybe you have no plan. You don't plan to come up with a plan and you're just going to walk out the door, say, oh, I'm just going to wing it. Let's just wing it. Let's not come up with a plan. It's a little more adventurous, but depending on the context, like if you're giving a speech or a presentation, sometimes it's not the best idea to just go ahead and wing it. You could get into trouble depending on the situation. But it is a useful idiom. If you ever want to say that you're going to do something without preparation, you could say that you're just going to wing it. I thought this was funny, so I wanted to share it with you. I'm going to wing it. And it says, me about something I most definitely should not wing. And yeah, maybe you can relate to this. I feel like I've done this before. As I don't have a plan, I'm just going to wing it. And then it really goes poorly. And I think to myself, I should have come up with a plan. I should not have been winging it. Off the beaten path. Now, I think this is a great idiom that you can use when talking about travel. So it just means that it is not known or popular with many people. So if you're talking about travel and you want to avoid the crowds, which is something that I like to do. I don't want to be around too many people, and maybe I'm coming to your hometown or your country, and I ask you, I say, where can I go that's a little off the beaten path? I don't want to be around a bunch of tourists. I want to find these secret spots that most people are unaware of. Where can I go that is off the beaten path? Now, you may know that by the way that I'm using it, it does have a little bit more of a positive connotation. These are places that it may or may not be secret, but these are places that people tend to enjoy because there's not many people, a lot of people don't know about it, and you could say it is off the beaten path. This beach is certainly off the beaten path. You can see there's nobody there, it's a beautiful beach, and maybe you tell me about this place that is off the beaten path, and I'm very happy about it because I want to spend the day at a beautiful beach without many people, without many tourists, and just go somewhere that is off the beaten path. The next idiom, to blow off some steam. This is something that we all need to do from time to time. It just means to do or say something that just helps you get rid of this, strong feelings, energy, stress, and you just want to blow off some steam. I'm going to go for a long run if I want to blow off some steam. And generally, I think a lot of people will do some sort of exercise if they want to blow off some steam. You're going to go for a run, you're going to go to the gym, and that's not always the case. You may do other things that may not be too physical. Perhaps you like to do yoga in order to blow off some steam. But you could also read a book or watch a TV show if you want to just get rid of some stress and blow off some steam. If I'm ever stressed out and I need to blow off some steam, I'll probably just walk around the neighborhood. Here are some news headlines to give you a better idea as to how this idiom is used in context. Thinking of hitting the gym to blow off some steam? An angry workout is a bad idea, research says. Or drop the vape. There are other ways to blow off some steam. I told you that it's not always used to talk about a physical activity, but I think it often is. And finally, every once in a while, a guy has to blow off some steam. I think that's true for everyone. Every once in a while, I think we all need to get rid of that pent-up energy, and we just need to blow off some steam. Then we have down to the wire. This is referring to a situation that is full of suspense, and what you're referring to is the last minute, the very end. So I could say, this is it, the game is coming down to the wire. And that would be a great association. Think of a sporting event, think of a match, doesn't really matter. And it's at the very end, it's close, there's a lot of suspense because you don't know which team is going to win. And you could say it's coming down to the wire. So you're talking about the end, but there is that element of suspense. If we're talking about a project and there is a deadline and you don't know whether you are going to meet the deadline, and there's a lot of suspense, and you might say, I'm stressed out, it's coming down to the wire, I don't know what's going to happen, I hope that I'll finish in time, but right now I got to work hard because, things are really coming down to the wire. And in that case, probably there's a lot of stress. You may also need to blow off some steam in that situation. Now, down to the wire it is a little different than in the home stretch. Or sometimes you may not need in and you could just use the home stretch. The reason why it's a little different, even though the meaning is the same, because the home stretch refers to the last part of something that's being done. So both of those idioms refer to like the final period of something, but in the home stretch, you're only talking about that. You're not really referring to the suspense of, oh, what's going to happen? I'm stressed out. I don't know if I'm going to finish. Basically, you're just saying that this is the final period or part of an activity. We are in the home stretch. Think about that picture, because this idiom actually comes from horse racing. At the end of the race, the announcer might say, they're coming down the home stretch. And that is, it is the final part of the race when they are in the home stretch. But I could use it when talking about work as well. Like in my example sentence, the project is almost done. We are in the home stretch and we're just at the final, the end of the project. I just like to throw in these funny memes from time to time, just give you a little, make it a little more entertaining, a little more humorous. We all need a good laugh. It's a better way to learn. So in this case, you know, this cat is at home, and that is certainly a home stretch, and that is a rather big stretch. The next idiom is in the doghouse. If you are in the doghouse, it just means that you are in a bad situation because someone is angry at you. And often you're going to use this idiom, or you're going to hear other people use it when you're talking about a relationship. So, for example, this did not happen. It's just an example. But if I were to tell you, I forgot my wife's birthday, now I'm in the doghouse. So keep in mind, someone is upset with you when you are in the doghouse. So if my wife is upset, if she's upset at me, then I would be the one saying, yeah, I'm in the doghouse. I need to maybe buy some flowers, buy a present in order to get out of the doghouse. So this picture, I think, is also a good association when thinking about it. You see that this guy, he did something wrong. He screwed up, and he is now sleeping outside in the doghouse because I imagine his wife is upset with him. So keep that in mind, that often you're going to use this with talking about a relationship, either husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend. You could use this talking about at work. Maybe you make a big mistake and your boss is really upset, angry at you, and then you tell a colleague, yeah, you know, right now I'm in the doghouse. You could also use it in that context as well. To be at a loss for words. And this just means you are unable to speak. You are speechless. Really, it is interchangeable with speechless, to be at a loss for words. You are going to use this with the verb to be. I could say, I can't believe it. I'm at a loss for words. Now, there are a variety of reasons as to why someone might be at a loss for words. They are very surprised, or they're very upset, or maybe they're very angry. And in any of those situations, if you cannot speak, you could, instead of saying, well, I'm speechless, you could just tell the other person, look, I'm at a loss for words. To be in the same boat. This just means to be in the same unpleasant situation as other people. So, well, let me just give you the sentence because I think it gives you a better idea as to how to use this idiom. I have a similar problem. We're in the same boat. You're really using this to talk about the same situation, or at least say that you are in the same situation as someone else. Generally speaking, it is a problem because it is an unpleasant situation, and you want to say, look, yeah, we're in the same boat. If I tell you, look, my wife is very upset with me, and right now I'm in the doghouse, and you might say, yeah, I have the same problem, with my partner, and I am in the doghouse. They say, oh, okay, I guess we're in the same boat, and we are in the same unpleasant situation if you are in the same boat. I like this. This little comic right here is saying, Sure glad that hole isn't at our end of the boat, even though little do they know they have the same problem and they are in the same boat. And quite literally, in this case, they are in the same boat. But I think it's a good example to demonstrate this idiom. Pick up the tab. Maybe you've heard this, perhaps you even use this, and I think that's great if you do. It just means to pay the bill, such as food or drinks at a bar. Now, also very commonly used would be to pick up the check. You go out to a restaurant or a cafe, go get a coffee at a coffee shop, and I say, look, I'll pick up the check. Don't worry about it. But if I just want to use another word, you could say the tab, because the tab literally refers to the bill. I'll pick up the tab. Don't worry about it. Whether you're at a restaurant, a cafe, or a bar, and you pick up the tab. Just keep in mind that you're really going to use it in that context. I wouldn't use it to talk about other things like purchasing an airline ticket or something like that. You're really going to use this when talking about out at some restaurant or a bar or coffee shop. Who's going to pay for the bill, pick up the check, pick up the tab. We go out and I ask you, look, whose turn is it to pick up the tab? Do you mind picking up the tab? Because I'm barely making ends meet. Okay, I just want to review. Throw that idiom back in there just to review it, because I know I'm giving you a lot right now. Hopefully you are already familiar with some of these idioms, and if you've heard of them before and it's a little bit of review, that's always great. And if you learn something new, I love when that happens, and you can let me know by hitting that like button. If some of these idioms are new, yeah, let me know, hit that like button. Then we have to bend over backwards. This just means to try extremely hard to help or please someone. And you may actually use that, bend over backwards to help someone. I've been bending over backwards to help you. So that is a little bit of a collocation with this idiom. It's frequently used if you are bending over backwards to help someone. Often, I feel like in this context, you're basically saying, I don't need to do this. I don't have to do it. I'm doing it because I want to help you, and I'm going out of my way to help you, and I'm bending over backwards to assist you in some way. And you're bending over backwards. Behind the 8 ball. Just looking at the picture, you can tell this is an idiom that comes from billiards, because it means to be in a difficult situation or in a worse situation than other people. And think about it. I don't know if you play billiards, but if you are trying to, if you're playing and you are behind the 8 ball, it's not a good position to be in. We didn't start the project immediately, and now we're behind the 8 ball. So it does have a negative connotation because we're referring to a difficult situation. So it's not a good situation to be in if you are behind the 8 ball. Elbow grease. All right, I say it like this because of the meaning. It just means to put a lot of physical effort, especially when cleaning. You can get that stain out, but you may need to use a little elbow grease. I think that, cleaning around the home, we've all done this. And there is some type of stain, or maybe just somebody spilled something on the table and you're trying to clean it and it's not coming out. And what do? You give a little elbow grease. You try to, really push down on it. And that's what I'm pushing down on the table. And you're using a little more physical effort, and you need to use a little elbow grease, give it a little elbow grease. So whenever you're talking about or you hear elbow grease, then you know that you're talking about more physical effort. But just keep in mind the context. I can't think of another situation apart from cleaning that you might say like elbow grease. I guess maybe if you're trying to take the top off of something and it's really hard, you're like, oh, I just got to give it a little elbow grease. Or maybe you're fixing something, you're using tools, and you really need to push hard or turn hard, use more physical effort. In that case, I guess too, you could also say that you need to use a little elbow grease. At the hardware store, it's like, where do you keep the elbow grease? So, like I said, maybe you could use it in this situation as well when you're fixing something, tools, and you need to use a little more physical effort. You need a little elbow grease. Unfortunately, of course, you're not going to find any at a hardware store. You just need to maybe need to go to the gym instead. Head in the clouds. This is an idiom that you're going to use to talk about a person. And it refers to someone who is not paying attention to what is happening around them, or is impractical or unrealistic. So if somebody is not paying attention, I could say, well, yeah, he really just has his head in the clouds. He has no idea what's going on around him, and he has his head in the clouds. Or if I want to refer to it as somebody being a little unrealistic, and somebody tells me something, and I say, well, yeah, she has her head in the clouds. The idea, it sounds good, but it is completely unrealistic, and she has her head in the clouds. So just keep that in mind, that you're going to use this idiom when talking about a person, and yeah, you're just saying that, this person not paying attention, not very practical or realistic, and he or she has his or her head in the clouds. Then we have through thick and thin. And this just refers to going through many difficult times over a long period of time. And really, you're going to use it with the past participle been. And you would say that you and someone else have been through thick and thin. You're using this in the context of a relationship. And generally, it's a relationship with someone that you've known over a long period of time because of the meaning. I would say, well, my wife and I, we have been through thick and thin. My brother and I have been through thick and thin. I have had some colleagues that I've worked with for a really long time, and yeah, I could say that we've been through thick and thin. My best friend, we've been through thick and thin. So I'm giving you examples of people that I've had a long relationship with. And if you just want to express that you've had ups and downs, good times and bad times, this is another way of saying that we've been through thick and thin. Here is a great visual, very, very touching. It's just like, aw, like these two cats when they were kittens and now they're older, but they have been friends through thick and thin. Great example. To get or to have your ducks in a row. You could use this really with either verb. It's commonly used with both, but it just means to be well prepared or organized for something that's going to happen. I think this is a great idiom when talking about work. And you want to say that someone is very well organized, they're very well prepared, and this person has his or her ducks in a row. I could say my colleague really has his ducks in a row, knows what's going on, does not have his head in the clouds, and just has his ducks in a row. Another example, when talking about work, I said this is a great work idiom. His workspace is chaotic. He really needs to get his ducks in a row. So in this case, I'm saying somebody needs to do this. They need to get prepared, and they need to get their ducks in a row. So great idiom, especially when talking about work. I thought this picture was funny, so I wanted to share it with you. All ears. And generally, you're going to use it with the verb to be all ears. You are waiting eagerly to hear about something. I think often you're going to use this kind of as a standalone statement. I would say, I'm all ears. You want to tell me something, and I'm waiting eagerly to hear what you have to say, and I tell you, look, I'm all ears. I am paying close attention to what you're saying. I'm all ears. This dog right here is certainly all ears and just really excited to hear what you have to say. To get wind of something. This means to hear a piece of information that someone else was trying to keep secret. So maybe I have a secret that I don't want you to know about. And maybe I've told a few other people, and you approach me and tell me about this. Like, you know what it is. And I might say, well, how did you get wind of this? How did you hear about this information that I was trying to keep secret? Another example, she got wind of the surprise party and pretended not to know. So in this case, of course, it's a surprise party. We don't want her to know. But she got wind of the party. And in that case, yeah, I think it is polite to pretend that, oh, I had no idea what was going on. But this is a great idiom because it's very specific. Instead of having to basically use the meaning to describe the situation, how did you hear about this piece of information that I was trying to keep secret? It's very wordy. That's a lot to say. Instead, I could just say, well, how did you get wind of this? Very simple, very clean, very precise. To get wind of something. Here are some more examples to give you a better idea as to how it's used in context. These are different news headlines. Fiji police get wind of unreported drug cases in schools. Or cancellations flood for Caldor Hotel as guests get wind of lockdown. And finally, this Hot Wheels set won't last long once collectors get wind of it. And they find out this new set is coming out and they get wind of it. And that's why it's not going to last long. Then we have the idiom to stick your neck out. This just means to take a risk and really do something that might turn out wrong, especially if you stick your neck out. So a lot of times you might do this for another person, and I'm going to try to help you in some way, and I'm going to stick my neck out and try to help you because we are friends, even though it could be risky for me and I could get in trouble. So think about, again, just using you and me as an example. Maybe we're colleagues and our boss is upset about something that happened on the project and it was maybe your responsibility. And you're thinking, oh gosh, the boss is going to be so upset and I am going to be in the doghouse. And I say, look, don't worry, we were both working on it. Even though if it was your mistake, I'm going to help you. It was our fault. And you might say, oh, I appreciate it. You sticking your neck out for me and also taking the blame for this. So just keep in mind when you do this, it is more of a kind of a courageous thing. You're trying to help someone and you're putting yourself at risk to stick your neck out for someone. Then we have out of the loop. This refers to a person in a group who is unaware of information and doesn't take part in the decision-making process. And you could say that this person is just out of the loop. The loop would be the people that know what's going on, and you have somebody who doesn't know what's going on. Maybe their head is in the clouds. I don't know. But you could just say this person is out of the loop. He is completely out of the loop. So really, you might use this when talking about someone that perhaps they should know what's going on, but they're not paying attention. They're not doing the work they should be doing. So yeah, he's kind of out of the loop. Keep in mind, you could use this the other way and say that you are in the loop. And in that case, it's the opposite. You know what's happening. You are aware of what's going on if you are in the loop. And maybe I ask you, please keep me in the loop. I don't want to be out of the loop. I want to know what's going on. So please keep me in the loop. When it rains, it pours. You can see that I'm using a full stop at the end there because really you're going to use this idiom as a standalone statement, just commenting that when one bad thing happens, it's typically followed by other bad things, and it can make the situation worse, or maybe it makes your day worse. And you could then say, yeah, when it rains, it pours. You're not really helping the situation when you say this. You're not expressing any type of sympathy or anything. You're really just commenting on what the other person is telling you, that, oh, I woke up late, my alarm didn't go off, and I missed the bus. So I had to try to get an Uber to the airport. And then when I got there, my flight was canceled and I had to get on a new flight. And then finally, when I arrived, they lost my luggage. And they just talk about all these bad things that are going on and say, oh, I'm sorry to hear that. When it rains, it pours. Generally, it is used to talk about negative things that are going on. If somebody is talking about a lot of wonderful things, you could also use this and say, yeah, when it rains, it pours. You're really just referring to one thing that happens after the other, whether good or bad. But most of the time, you're going to use this when somebody's talking about things that are bad that are happening. And yeah, you'd say, when it rains, it pours. Once again, I want to point out a little slight difference between American English and British English, because of course I am going to say, when it rains, it pours. But in the UK, you may hear someone say, it never rains, but it pours. The meaning is the same, but the phrase is a little different. The next idiom, to get something off your chest. This just means to tell someone about something that has been worrying you. Maybe it's making you feel a little guilty for some time, and you need to tell someone. And you just need to get something off your chest. I think we can all relate to this. And typically, you would tell someone who's close to you. So I told you that my wife and I have been through thick and thin. So I feel comfortable telling her things that have been worrying me. And I just want to get it off my chest. I will add one little nuance. You may end up saying this to someone that you need to tell them something that's worrying you that could upset this person. And it's like you're saying, I need to tell you something. You're not going to want to hear it. You may not like it, but I need to get it off my chest. It's good to get things off your chest, but who knows? Maybe afterwards, if that person is angry with you, and then you're going to be in the doghouse. So, but in general, I think it's good to confess and just get things off of our chest. Then we have to be on thin ice. This idiom really means what it says. You can see in this picture right here, somebody is standing on thin ice. It's starting to crack. It is not a good position to be in. So you're doing something that is dangerous. It involves risk, and you're on thin ice. So once again, to give you an example, I don't know why I'm just giving you these examples like I'm forgetting birthdays. I forgot to buy her a birthday present, maybe my wife. So right now I'm on thin ice. I think sometimes you may use this when you're giving a warning to someone that they're saying something to you, whether a friend or your partner, and you are upset. And you're like, you stop right there. You're on thin ice. You are in a dangerous position, so you better just zip and zip it because you are on thin ice. Then we have to throw caution to the wind. This is a little bit of the opposite of being on thin ice. This is when you are going to stop being careful and do something that is dangerous or that might result in failure, and you're going to throw caution to the wind. I don't think we need to take any chances. Now is not the time to throw caution to the wind. So keep that in mind when you're not being careful, and in that case, you are throwing caution to the wind. I'm using it in the negative down here because I may tell you, instead of like, I'm telling you to be careful. And in that case, look, don't throw caution to the wind. All right, don't take any unnecessary chances or risk. Don't throw caution to the wind. So in that case, I'm using it in the negative, so I'm telling you to be careful. So something to keep in mind, you may end up using this in the affirmative, the negative. I personally think a lot of times it's used in the negative, saying, look, don't throw caution to the wind. And it's another way of telling somebody to be careful. This cat trying to jump off the boat onto land, and so sometimes you got to throw caution to the wind and go for it. It's very risky, but that cat wanted to get off the boat, and just you got to throw caution to the wind and see what happens. The next idiom is to hang on someone's every word. This means to listen carefully to what someone is saying because you admire this person, you respect them, and you are captivated by this individual. And this is a great way to say that you are paying close attention because you are so captivated and you are hanging on this person's every word. Throughout the lecture, I was hanging on his every word. I hope that throughout this lesson, you have been hanging on my every word and you are really paying close attention to these idioms, trying to understand how they're used in context and really organizing your thoughts. And I think that you are able to do this because you are someone who has their ducks in a row. All right. That's just what I think. I think you got your ducks in a row and you're going to be able to learn all of these idioms because you are hanging on my every word. At least that's what I would like to think that you are doing. But good idiom if you want to express that level of excitement and interest if you're listening to somebody, whether it's a lecture, a presentation, or even somebody telling a story, and you are hanging on their every word. Mum's the word. All right, this is, I think, also used as a standalone statement, but this is said when you want to tell someone that you're trying to keep a secret. So I tell you a secret, don't tell anybody. This is a secret. This is between you and me. Mum's the word. I don't want anyone else to get wind of this. So I trust you. I don't want people to get wind of it. So mum's the word. Really, I think we've all been in the situation. We tell somebody something that we don't want them to repeat to another person, and you feel like you need to actually say that. You need to tell this person, look, this is a secret. Don't tell anyone. So this is more of a casual, informal way of saying, don't tell anyone, mum's the word. I think it's more of a fun way to say that. To put a pin in it, or put a pin in this, it really just means to take a break from discussing some topic with plans to resume the discussion later. And you could say, look, we'll put a pin in it. So you're really going to follow it with it or this. You don't have to, but most of the time you will, because it's like the other person already knows what it is you're talking about. You're having this discussion about something, and you want to say, okay, let's talk about it later. And that is why we're going to say put a pin in it, meaning the thing that you've been talking about, or this. Let's put a pin in this for right now, and we'll come back to it later. So once again, I think this is one that you could use in more of a work context with a team. You're discussing something, and maybe you feel like you're getting sidetracked. Like, look, okay, we don't need to be talking about this right now. Let's put a pin in it, and we'll come back to it later, and then we'll just focus on this other thing. Keep in mind, this is definitely different than take a rain check, because remember, take a rain check, you're saying, look, we're not going to do it now, we'll do it some other time. That's really more about an invitation. This is about discussing a topic. And when you say, let's put a pin in it, I do think people actually intend to discuss it later. It's not like take a rain check, in which case, look, I may ignore your invitation. In this case, if you say, let's put a pin in it, I think the intention is certainly to resume and come back to the topic at a later time in the future. But once again, I think it's a great one to know and use, especially in a work situation when you say, okay, we'll come back to it. Let's put a pin in it for now. Ring a bell. And it just means to sound familiar. Maybe I say, well, look, his name, it doesn't ring a bell. It doesn't sound familiar to me. So we're talking about being able to recall some information or remember something, and instead of using sound familiar, because they're really interchangeable, you could use ring a bell. Maybe you know some of these idioms, and I hope that some of these idioms ring a bell. And you're like, oh yeah, this one sounds familiar. I've heard it before, or I've learned it before. Or maybe it's new. And you say, well, this idiom, I've never heard this before. It just does not ring a bell. Okay? But if some of these idioms ring a bell, let me know. Ring that like button down below. Let me know if some of these idioms ring a bell and you've heard them before. Maybe you've used them, and that's even better. I want to share with you some more news headlines so you can see how it's used in context. Names that ring a bell. You hear this name, oh yeah, that rings a bell. Or Robert Dunlap, does the name ring a bell? He invented something you probably rode on this morning. Maybe it doesn't ring a bell. Dunlap, it's talking about like tires. It was like a brand or company, tire company. Anyway, that's what they mean by that. Probably something you rode on this morning. Or just, I've said it before, it doesn't ring a bell. And that is a phrase that someone would use instead of saying it doesn't sound familiar, it doesn't ring a bell. Off the hook. This means when you are free from blame or from an annoying obligation. You are off the hook. Either one. So you make a mistake. I'm not going to punish you. And I can say, look, you're off the hook. All right. Or an annoying obligation. I invite you to come to my party, and you don't want to go. You say, look, I'll take a rain check. And then I know, I'm like, oh, okay, all right. They don't want to go. Look, okay, don't worry about it. You don't have to come to my party. I know that there's something else that you've got going on. Don't worry about it. You're off the hook. So in that case, you're free from some annoying obligation. But I would hope that if I had a party that you'd want to come to my party and hang out and have a good time. Great idiom. I know I've said that a bunch, but this time I mean it. Great idiom to know, to be off the hook. Pay through the nose for something. This is an idiom that you can use to really emphasize that you are paying too much for something and you pay through the nose. I will say, to add a little bit of a nuance to this, I think it's really you're paying too much for something, like more than the fair price. So think about a price that may change. All right, now are you thinking about, oh wait, what prices may change? Airline tickets, hotel prices. So you're going to travel over the holidays. Well, during the holidays, the price of an airline ticket goes up. You're going to pay through the nose, pay more for something, more than the fair price. Wherever you stay at a hotel, the prices are going to go up because it's a holiday. You're going to pay through the nose. So keep that in mind when you're using this idiom. You are emphasizing that you're paying more for something, too much for something, more than the fair price. Generally, when the prices fluctuate because of supply and demand, airline tickets, hotel prices, and there are other things as well in which the prices may fluctuate, and you end up paying through the nose. To bite the bullet. This means to force yourself to do something unpleasant or difficult. You don't want to do it. You've been avoiding this thing, and maybe now you cannot avoid it any longer, and you have to bite the bullet. Despite her fear of public speaking, she had to bite the bullet and give the presentation. Maybe, I don't know, maybe she's just going to wing it and didn't plan any things. Perhaps if somebody does not have their ducks in a row and they're going to give a presentation, I'm just going to wing it. And yeah, they don't want to, but they're going to have to bite the bullet. But in this case, we're referring mostly to somebody's fear of public speaking, which again is something that I think we can all relate to. Getting up there in front of a large audience, you don't want to do it. You find it unpleasant, you got to do it, you're going to have to bite the bullet and just go ahead and do it. This is a fun little meme for all of you Office fans out there. I love The Office, which is why I put this in there. It says, false. Bullets travel at 1,100 feet per second. Say goodbye to your teeth. Now, of course, we're not talking about this idiom in a literal sense, but if there's something unpleasant that you don't really want to do and you have to do it, you're going to have to bite the bullet. Then we have to be in a pickle. I thought that, again, cute, adorable little picture, but that kitten is in a pickle. It just means to be in a difficult situation. So instead of saying, I'm in a difficult situation, you could say, I'm in a pickle. Now, it's a difficult situation that is not catastrophic, like really end of the world problems. Generally, I think you might use this when you're talking about a difficult situation that is frustrating, you don't want to be in, and you just want to express that when saying that, yeah, I'm kind of in a pickle. I don't know what to do. Something happened, My flight got canceled. I'm not sure if I want to find another flight or just cancel the trip. I'm kind of in a pickle right now. Can you help me? I'm in a pretty pickle. Now, in the example, you notice that I added the word pretty. You may hear people use that when using this idiom, to be in a pretty pickle. If I'm going to use this, I would just say I'm in a pickle. That kitten is in a bit of a pickle, but I think if it drops to the ground, I imagine the cat will be fine. Red tape. This is one that I feel like probably maybe you've heard of it, you're familiar with it, because I think often it's used, especially if you read the news and you're talking about government or business, official rules and processes that seem unnecessary and delay results. So as an example, there was a lot of red tape in order to get the construction permits. When talking about government, I'll give you an example, perfect example. I live abroad with my family, and we got to go and do this immigration stuff. We got to get a residence card, all of these different things, and there is quite a bit of red tape. For any of you who live in another country, maybe you're dealing with a green card, residence card, and you feel like you have to deal with a lot of red tape. Very common idiom, and that's why I wanted to share it with you. Very useful if you want to talk about that situation. And it's just frustrating. There's so much red tape. I think we can all relate to this in one way or another. Here is a fun little comic using this phrase. The office supply store is having a sale on red tape this week, but it will take us 9 months to approve the purchase, because there's a lot of red tape in order to get that approval. So I think you get the joke and see why it's funny. There's a lot of red tape, even though red tape is something that is mostly very frustrating. Here is the next idiom I want to share with you. Hindsight is 2020. This refers to looking back on a situation or an event and having a clearer understanding of how things could have been done better. Now, I just know how it is in the US. I don't know in other countries. If you go and get your eyes tested, 2020 means that you have perfect vision. So I need glasses. I do not have 2020 vision. But it basically means hindsight, looking back. When you think about the past and think about the things that happened, of course, you're now able to look at it and say, I should have done this, or I should have done that. That was a mistake. Hindsight is 2020. So you're basically commenting that, well, maybe you are expressing some frustration, like, I should have done this, I should have done that. And I just tell you, hindsight is 2020. The ability to look back at something, you can see things clearly. I should have seen this coming, but you know what they say? Hindsight is 2020. And again, it is more of a standalone statement when you use this idiom. Hindsight is 2020. Look on the bright side. This is used when you want to, try to cheer someone up and tell them to think positively, even though there's some bad situation. Maybe you're on thin ice, and because of a mistake that you made at work. And I say, well, look on the bright side. Now you understand what you've done wrong, because hindsight is 2020, and you are never going to make that mistake again, and you can move forward and do things the correct way from now on. The one thing I'll say, which I didn't really give in this example, it's not so bad, try to look on the bright side. When people use this, even though it's not in the example, when you tell someone, look on the bright side, the expectation is that you're then going to say why the other person should stay positive, or what is the good that is going to come out of this when you tell someone, look on the bright side. Out of your league. You're going to use this when talking about a person. When someone, or something, I generally think you're going to talk about a person, is too good or expensive for someone to have. So in this, I said, she's definitely out of your league. So this is why I said you're often going to use this when talking about a person. When I was younger, I was attracted to this woman. She was incredibly beautiful, but all my friends told me, look, she is out of your league. She is too beautiful for you. Sadly, this is actually true. This is something that my friends told me a long time ago. I might be interested in some girl, like, oh, I'm going to ask her out. She's so beautiful. And they're like, dude, don't even try. She is out of your league. She is too beautiful for you. So you could say that somebody is out of their league maybe because they're too beautiful or too intelligent or too anything. Could have to do with social class. And it could go the other way around. Maybe a man, he is out of your league. But generally, I feel like it's used in that context, maybe because that's my personal experience with it, that a man is attracted to some woman, and they say, look, she is out of your league. Now, to go back to the meaning and saying that something, maybe a car, or you're trying to buy a home, and look, you're never going to be able to afford this. It is way out of your league. You could use it in that context, but generally I feel like it's often talking about, dating, wanting to ask someone out and say, look, she's out of your league. But again, maybe that's because of my own personal experience with this idiom and people just constantly telling me, she's out of your league. Not only am I out of your league, you're not even playing the same sport. So it's kind of a fun little take on this idiom, jump on the bandwagon. This means to start doing something because it's fashionable, popular, or maybe profitable. There are many reasons why someone may jump on the bandwagon. Once the team started winning, many people jumped on the bandwagon. I think often it's used in that context, a sports team. They suddenly start winning, they become more and more popular, and then all of a sudden everybody's a fan. Oh, I love this team. It's my favorite team. And then, no, you just jumped on the bandwagon. But you could use this in, let's think about the context of something that's profitable. And a business, they start making money, selling something, and then other companies, they jump on the bandwagon because it's profitable, and they also want to follow this trend and try to make money and jump on the bandwagon. Fun idiom to use. To cloud one's judgment. I like this because it is a little more specific. It just means to impair one's ability to think clearly and make sound decisions. And I say it's precise because there are different moving parts to the situation. If I'm saying that, look, something is clouding your judgment. Perhaps you have a history with someone. Maybe you know someone and you and this person have been through thick and thin, and somebody tells you, look, they stole something from me. You're like, that's impossible. I know this person so well. And I may tell you, look, because you are so close to this individual, perhaps it's clouding your judgment. And that you have this history and therefore you're unable to clearly understand the situation or make a sound decision if your judgment is clouded. His emotions clouded his judgment during the negotiations. So that's why I said there are other moving parts typically when you're in a situation, you're trying to make a decision or like some negotiation, and your judgment is clouded because of something else. Great idiom to use in that context when you want to say, look, you're not going to be able to make a sound decision or think clearly because something is clouding your judgment. Monday morning quarterback. This is definitely an American idiom because, well, the football is a sport that is incredibly popular in the US. I guess it is becoming more and more popular in other parts of the world as well. But generally speaking, a Monday morning quarterback is a person who criticizes the actions or decisions of others after the fact. And keep that in mind. You are criticizing these decisions because you could say, well, hindsight is 20/20. Now you know what you should have done. But if I'm criticizing it, well, why the hell did you do this? This was such a stupid mistake. Then it's like I'm playing Monday morning quarterback. To give you more context, typically all the football games are played on Sunday. So of course on Monday, you can look back and then criticize the decisions that were made by quarterbacks. Why did they throw that ball? Why did they throw that pass? That was a bad pass, bad decision. And you're playing Monday morning quarterback. So this is certainly more of an American idiom, one that you are going to hear and use in the US. To weather the storm. This means to be able to continue doing something despite serious problems. And you're in a situation that is difficult, but you're trying to say, I think we can continue, I think we can move forward, and we're going to try to weather the storm. Here's another example, more related to like a business context. The company is confident it can weather the storm of economic uncertainty. So whether we're talking about business or just life in general, you're maybe trying to make ends meet, but inflation has been a problem all over the world. And I think all of us in some way, we're trying to weather the storm and get to the other side. It's a little more problematic, things are more expensive, and we're trying to weather the storm and just continue and keep going. The next idiom is one that I imagine you've heard this idiom. For some reason, when people teach idioms, this is like one of the first idioms all teachers will go over with their students, and that is raining cats and dogs. This just means to rain very heavily. Personally, I don't feel like I use this idiom that often, but I think it's still one that you may come across. It's good to know if you want to add emphasis, talking about the weather, and just say, wow, it's raining cats and dogs. Keep in mind, one slight mistake that I've heard people use, they try to switch cats and dogs, and oh, it's raining dogs and cats. That does sound a little bit awkward, so I would just stick with this phrase right here, raining cats and dogs. Don't forget your umbrella, it's raining, I almost said it right there, I just told you not to do it, I almost said it. Don't forget your umbrella, it's raining cats and dogs out there. So then we have the next idiom, which is to pull some strings. If you are pulling strings or pulling some strings, this just means to secretly use influence you have over important people in order to get something or to help someone. So maybe I am applying for a job and you know the person who is going to hire the person for the job, and I might ask you and I'd say, hey, you know, can you pull some strings and see if you can help me get this job because you know the person who is in charge of hiring. Or here's another example down below. I was able to pull a few strings and get you on an earlier flight. Maybe this is something that a gate attendant might tell someone at the airport, and they're able to pull a few strings and help out a passenger. Now, keep in mind, you may often say pull some strings or pull a few strings. Both of them mean the same thing, and they are commonly used. The next idiom is ballpark figure, or you may just say ballpark, but basically you're talking about an educated guess or estimation. So maybe I ask you, how much is this car worth? And you say, well, I don't really know. Okay, just give me a ballpark or give me a ballpark figure. Essentially, I'm asking you to make your best guess when you are giving me a ballpark figure. So like just in this question down below, can you give me a ballpark figure? That's all I want to know. Then we have the idiom toe the line. This means to do what you are expected to do without causing trouble for anyone, and you are just trying to toe the line. Maybe this is used in a situation in which you're not trying to cause any controversy, you don't like confrontation, and even if you disagree with something, or maybe you disagree with someone, you're not going to cause a lot of trouble, and you're just trying to toe the line. Employees who refuse to toe the line will be let go. That's not really a company that I'd want to work for, but I imagine that is what some companies, that is their mindset, that employees, you got to toe the line or you're not going to work here any longer, and you just have to toe the line. Then there's to hit someone up. This is more of an informal idiom, and it just means to ask someone for something. Generally speaking, I think you're going to use this when maybe asking for money, and I might hit you up for a loan, or I just need a few bucks, and yeah, I'm just going to hit you up for some cash. So that's not always the case, but I think quite often if you hear someone using this idiom or you want to use it yourself, you're probably going to be talking about money. Now, we have just learned a lot of idioms in this lesson. I don't expect you to remember all of them. I hope that some of this is review. But if you did learn something new, you can let me know by hitting that like button. Remember, you can check out the link down below in the description if you'd like to get these lesson notes. And yeah, I will see you soon for another lesson in the future. So long.